Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leader's Edge. Tonight is Season 5, Episode 6. And our show for tonight is called Maintaining Integrity as a Leader. Leaders need to show sincerity and authenticity in walking their talk. Maintaining integrity means doing what you promised, even if it might be uncomfortable and inconvenient for you. Integrity is resisting the temptation to cut corners just to save on cost and at the expense of quality. Our speaker tonight, Colleen Chulis, is the Regional Vice President of SAP SuccessFactors for regulated industries in North America. Colleen brings over 15 years experience in global technology sales and customer success and is passionate about partnering with customers in the regulated industry space in their HXM journey. Most recently, Colleen was the Vice President of SAP SuccessFactors in the Northeast, focusing on bringing in net new customers such as Peloton, Chobani, and Bic. In her role, she handled leading the strategy, business operations, revenue performance, customer relationships, and overall customer satisfaction in the market segment. Before joining SAP in 2018, Colleen was the Vice President of Sales at TransPerfect, the world's largest provider of language services and language translation technology solutions. In this role, Colleen oversaw a global team including sales associates, consultants, and team managers throughout the US, Europe, and Latin America, maintaining 9 Fortune 500 accounts with an emphasis on life sciences companies. Colleen graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor in Science in Business from Elon University. Colleen is also involved locally as a board member for the Music Resource Center of Charlottesville and volunteers with International Neighbors, which helps equips refugee neighbors with the network and skills needed to thrive in Charlottesville. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the virtual stage Colleen Chulis. Colleen,
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
leadership is such a hot topic right now, but before we go anywhere else, could you tell me about your career path and how you ended up with what you're doing today?
Okay.
Okay.
So grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the US, and now I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I had a great, wonderful childhood and growing up, but I studied business and Spanish in school and basically got into sales kind of by accident. I didn't really think that I didn't want to be in sales. It didn't sound cool to me. There's some stigma associated with sales, and I found out I was good at it, and I really enjoyed it because at the end of the day, what it was believing in something that you were selling, which takes a lot of integrity, right? Because I had to truly believe in it, and then also fix customers' problems. Like that's really what it is. It's you're not forcing anything on anyone. A customer has a challenge, they need something, and you're figuring out if you're the right solution for it, and therefore finding a way that your company continues to grow and they get what they want, and you want them to be happy, and you want them to continue to kind of sell for you. So I found it great because there was a competitive piece of it. It was kind of like the harder you work, the more you could earn. You know, I wanted there to be a direct correlation there. And then also making customers happy. I mean, that's where I get excited. I like to meet with companies and people and them say, this is what we're trying to figure out. And then if I can fix it, that's a really, really good really good feeling. So I've been in sales now pretty much my whole working career, and I started working for SAP SuccessFactors a few years ago, and one of the largest software companies in the entire world, 100,000 employees, and I sell the HR piece of our software. So we call it human experience management. It's everything that an employee touches throughout their working career, and also anything that a manager needs and everything. So it's really wonderful because it kind of ties it all together. It's the human piece of software. So I feel like I'm in my sweet spot now. And I have 3 children, ages 10, 9, and 6, a boy, girl, and a boy. And my husband, I have a wonderful husband. He's actually a soccer coach in a university here for a men's team. So lots of sports going on in our world, and it's been great. So thanks again for having me.
Wow. I must say that I absolutely agree with what you've shared about needing to believe in what it is that you're about to sell or that you're going to promote. And now I know who to thank among many people for all of the HR departments in my country who have benefited from SAP because
Yeah.
you've helped HR do their job so much better. Instead of being stuck with the admin side of things, they're now able to plan, they're now able to strategize thanks to what SAP has done for them. Uh,
Well, thank you. You sound I think you know exactly what you're talking about there. That's exactly right. You know, we don't want HR people to sit and have to do data entry and figure out reports on their own. I mean, there's technology that helps them so they can actually elevate what they do. So you're exactly right. It's a lot of we get a lot of joy out of doing it.
and so, yes, I agree completely with you. Why, in choosing a topic for today, what what drove you to choose integrity, and what does that mean to you?
Well, there's so much there. I could probably write a book on that topic. I think that over my years of working and being involved with different companies and different people, and seeing a lot of bad, right? Seeing a lot of lack of integrity, I've realized how important it is. So I think it's one of those things you take for granted until you see that people don't have it. And then you almost think, how do you not have it? Right? It's kind of like air. Like you don't think about air every day until you're swimming underwater, and then you're like, wow, I need to take a breath. And so I've seen people that don't have integrity, and I realized how much that impacts me as a working professional and just as a human. And so, when we talk about core values and mission statements and all the corporate lingo, I always think to myself, all of it really just kind of threads back to integrity. That is the thing. And so over the last, I would say probably 2 or 3 years, the more that I've thought about what I look for, so when I'm hiring a person or what I look for in a friend, is really integrity. And I really believe you kind of have it or you don't. It can be little things or it can be big things. Now, what's also funny about it is 100% of the humans out there will say that they have integrity. No one in the world will say, I don't have integrity. Everyone says it. So it's not something that you can really ask for or look for. It's just based on actions. It's based on actions. It's based on the little tiny things that you do during the day. It's based on what do you do when no one's watching. I remember when I started out in my career, they said something like, when you're dealing with an unhappy customer, or if you're dealing with a kind of a person who's being a jerk to you, pretend like the CEO is sitting on your shoulder watching. But what helped me was actually pretending that my grandpa was sitting on my shoulder watching. So that's how I still to this day, if I'm having a hard conversation with an employee, or that's typically when I feel like you get tested, right? Is you're having a conversation with an employee. I pretend that my grandfather is actually watching, like he's in the room, and he passed away, but I feel like he had incredible integrity, and I don't want to say anything or do anything that would create, him to be upset with me. So that has been my little cue. Like it's my little, if I'm not sure what to do here, if I could maybe twist something or whatever, I always literally go back to, if my grandpa was on my shoulder watching me, would I be okay with this? So I think that's a nice little test for people to think about as they're struggling with different situations.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing that particular insight. Before I move any further, I just like to touch briefly on an observation that you made, because you have a good point there. I would say that the traditionalist generation, in other words, your grandfather, my grandfather, were people who were men of honor. I recall, uh, because they both survived the Second World War, and their word became their bond.
Yes.
Uh, was he a really strong influence on you? And what were some of the things that you recall your grandfather did that helped you see what integrity means in life?
Yes, I had actually two grandfathers who were both similar in the sense that they kind of started with nothing and became very successful. So, but the one grandfather that I'm speaking about, he grew up to a single mom in New York City. That didn't happen very often, right? The father had left; he was an alcoholic, and so it was just my grandpa and his mom. And he valued very, very, very much education and sports because that's what got him to do what he wanted to do. So he went to a great high school. He got a scholarship to play football at a university, and literally just worked his way from entry level all the way up at the company that he worked for, which was Westinghouse Electric. And that to me, just watching him work, but always make people feel good. I remember when we were at his, we had a big party for one of his many retirements. He kept retiring and going back to work. He had a retirement party, and there were two women there, and my mom introduced me to them, and they said, "These are the women who clean his office." And they were the janitorial staff that would come in at night. And I don't think many people would think to invite the cleaning staff at night to your party, to your retirement party. I don't think it would go through many people's minds. But he did. He was like, of course. He's like, they clean my office every night. They're coming to my party. So just little things like that. But I definitely think that, growing up, and he also lived next door to me, growing up, like literally in the house next door. So that was great, just being around him so much. It was definitely life-changing for me.
So in other words, what one of the many things that stuck to your mind was how a leader with integrity would treat everybody the same way, or wouldn't be picking favorites, but would show kindness regardless of their station in life. That's beautiful. And I was wondering, now that we transition on to a more corporate setting, I'm kind of curious, what would be some examples for you of valid integrity from leadership in a corporate setting?
Yes. So there's so many different ways of looking at it. The one thing as well that, a kind of question that I ask myself a lot of times that guides me is, if I were the owner of this company, would I be okay with this? I think about that all the time. So let's just say that you are having a colleague that's not doing their job. You know that they're not. Or maybe you're the manager of that person and you kind of think to yourself, whatever, it's fine. But I think about it like, okay, if I were the owner of this company and I'm paying this person a salary every year, in a way, it's like I'm throwing away money. I'm not giving it to someone who's working. That to me, that's a sign of integrity. And I don't think many people would think of integrity that way. They would say, well, I'm not sure about that person, or maybe they'll find another job soon, or I hope they do. In my mind, it's like you're stealing money from the company. So that's kind of an extreme example, but I try to look through that lens. I think also just, it can be little things. I've seen people I remember being shocked once at going to an internal lunch and having one of my colleagues like click the, it's actually using one of our technologies, using Concur, which is our expense management tool, take a picture of the receipt to submit it for reimbursement. And I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, he's like, they won't know. They'll think it's just a company lunch. Like I'm bringing a customer out to lunch. And I remember thinking, I thought I liked you. You went from here to the same as being a jewelry thief. It sounds, yes, it might have just been an $8 lunch, but you stole from the company. So I think that it's kind of like lying. It's kind of like whatever. But if you do these little activities, they become bigger activities. So I think it's really important to have a very hard line. I remember before I got married to my husband, I used to ask people all the time, what's your marriage advice? Tell me something, give me something good. And I actually lived in Dublin, Ireland for a year working for a company. And this older gentleman said to me, don't cheat the first time. And for some reason that has always stuck with me. Don't cheat the first time. Basically, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it a first time, because if you don't do it a first time, you're not going to do it a second time. I think a lot of people think, just this once, right? I'm just gonna fudge my expense report one time, or I'm gonna sell the customer something that they don't need because I'll make some extra money. I'm just going to do it one time. But I think the idea is don't do it ever. Don't do it, not even once, because if you don't do it the first time, you're not going to do it a second time. So that's another line that's always stuck with me.
That brings to mind a memory that I have, and I won't mention names, but there was a time when I was serving this client who invited me out to have drinks with him, go to this karaoke bar, which is popular here in the Philippines. Go out and let's have some drinks, go to this karaoke bar. And he said, this bar is different because we'll be eating the sushi and the other things off of lady. And okay, I won't describe that, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. And I said, I was caught in a bind because I have values that prevent me from doing anything like that. And so I said, but wait a minute, aren't you married? And then he goes, don't worry, my wife doesn't know about it, and she never will. And then I said to him, sir, I'm sorry, but even if my wife doesn't know, I know, and that would bother me. So if you don't mind, could I invite you instead to my karaoke place where, we eat off of plates and everybody just enjoys singing.
What a crazy idea to eat off of a plate.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a lot of those examples as well. And it's hard. I think it's easier as you get older, right? It's easier as you get older and maybe you have a partner or you're more established in your career. But I think it's very, very, very hard to say no in those situations when it's your boss that's asking you and you're 23 years old. And you're trying to prove that I can do this. I can handle it, right? And so what's that fine line between integrity and feeling good about your decisions and keeping your boss happy or getting a promotion or showing that you can hang out with one of the guys? Those are very, really, really tricky scenarios.
A question that I'm dying to ask is, given your extensive experience in leadership and integrity issues, that I'm sure you've been through so many of them already, how does a leader begin to slide down that slippery slope where they begin to lose their integrity? What to you would be the signs that a leader is in fact beginning to lose their integrity?
Gosh, that's such a good question. And I've never really thought about it because, well, I have thought about it. I guess I've never articulated what I think. So I do think, when I've seen people kind of slip into poor behavior or people that I felt like were a good person. And then over the years you see them change and you think, What is that? I actually think one of the biggest things is who you spend your time with. So if you're spending your time with people that are doing things without integrity, and we could name 100 examples, right? Cheating, cheating on a spouse, lying, saying you're going to be somewhere where you're not, fudging your expense report for work. I mean, telling your boss you got in at 9 and you actually got in at 10. I mean, there's a million little examples, and then there's really, really big examples. I think that if you're around people that act that way, it becomes normal to you. I've seen it happen time and time again, where people are good people. They were raised, with wonderful families, wonderful values, and their circle changes. Maybe they spend time with others, or they kind of get into the cool crowd or whatever. And before you know it, they start dabbling with making that same decision, or going to the sushi place with the the woman to eat off the woman, like things that they would have never done years ago, but now their friends are doing it, right? Or maybe it's not their friends, but it's their corporate friends, right? And so I heard once, and it said something like, you are the average of the 4 people you spend the most time with, or you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I've thought a lot about that. Who are the people I spend the most time with? And do I want to be the average of those people? What people are just kind of not good people that maybe are pulling me down, and making me not be my best self? So I think that's a huge part of it, is just who you're spending your time with. And then it becomes normal, right? Like, it's just like the don't cheat the first time, don't lie the first time. If you're with friends and they're lying to their wives or their husbands on the phone, after a year of that, you're going to lie to your wife or husband on the phone. It's not going to feel so bad. So I think that's probably a big thing, is trying to determine where you want to be. And actually with SAP at my current company, when I was looking to change to a different company, that was one of the biggest things for me. It was integrity in people. I want to be out at a dinner and not feel uncomfortable with other men. I want to be, I just wanted people to talk about their kids at dinner and not talk about crazy things. I wanted to be with good people. And so, I was at a place in my career where I could kind of choose where I wanted to go. And I know not everyone has the luxury of picking where they work. But as much as you can try to control it and try to work for a company or be with friends that do have those same values, it will make the rest of your life a little bit easier, I think.
Colleen, I agree with you in the sense that there are times when we work for somebody that possesses so much integrity, we would literally walk through charcoal or through fire for them.
Yes.
And I've been blessed in my life to have had two bosses who were exactly like that, who fought for what they believed in, even if it cost them friction with their fellow managers, or if it made them unpopular with, say, the rest of the directors of the company. They stood their ground, and I stood right there with them. One of them even was somebody I believed in so much that for 2 months I accepted having no salary, because the company almost went belly up because of her decision. But I stuck by her because I knew that she was doing the right thing. Here's my question though. Finding people with integrity is not as easy as it is. I'm sure many times we struggle with meeting people who we wish had it, but maybe they have a measure of it, and then other times they're as flawed and as regular as normal people. um, where do you find the balance between integrity and the need for it, and letting people be people in order to preserve relationships and in order to preserve harmony? uh, is there a balance somewhere, or is it something that we will really just have to struggle with?
Yeah, I think it just has to be top of mind, in interactions. You can't get lazy about it. And so I do try to do a gut check for me. I'm fortunate to lead a team. And when we're talking about the people on the team, just making sure that they're doing the right things. And it sounds simple, but it's kind of true. It's in some ways it's objective. It's not subjective. It's, are you doing the right things? You kind of feel it, right? And I think you can do an HR process and you can make it all very technical, but at the end of the day, I think you can kind of tell if someone is doing the right thing day in and day out. And if they're not, I do think it needs to be addressed. And again, everyone's human. Everyone makes mistakes. Of course, I've made mistakes. I'm sure that there have been many times where I've not spoken kindly, or I make someone feel uncomfortable or whichever, but it's certainly not intentional. And I hope to always be getting better. I'm always trying to improve and receive feedback and get better the next time. But no one's perfect. There's no perfect leader out there. I think that's what is interesting as you kind of grow in your career. People that you put on a pedestal, you realize they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have bad days. But what you saw as an employee was almost perfection. And I think that's like that with sports celebrities, singers, dancers. They seem perfect, but they're totally normal and human, and they mess up, right? So no one's perfect, but if the intent is there and people are trying their best and they're willing to take feedback and they're willing to constantly be 1% better every day, I think that's something to work with. Now, if someone is kind of messing up or we're seeing kind of signs of lack of integrity and they're not willing to be open about it, they're not willing to accept feedback, they push you out, that's probably not really workable. And it's probably not worth your energy.
I can see where you're coming from and why that would be critical. I recall one time when I sat on an adjudication board with all of the non-sales managers, because I was part of a training department before, and we had almost like an internal civil war, because the big boss said, okay, stop selling because we're about to raise prices on these golf shares. And so half the workforce complied, the other half continued selling. And what this led to was problems with deciding who gets the commission, who gets the credit. And so I wasn't able to do anything useful for the next 2 to 3 months, because we went from hearing after hearing after hearing, deciding on, okay, well, you worked half the time, you won the account, but he was the one who opened the door. And so, it was like making Solomon's decisions
Yeah.
left and right. That gave me a lot of white hair that you're seeing now. um, and so my question to you would be, sales is such a shark infested ocean. How does a leader maintain integrity uh, in a sales setting?
Yes, it is. It is. It's sales is hardcore because there's a lot of pressure, right? If you're a salesperson, you have a number that you have to hit every quarter, every year, and that's your job. It's a check. Like, did you hit it or did you not hit it? And you have to sell a certain amount. So I think you have to back into that. Am I selling the right things that I agree with? Do I believe in the solution? Do I believe it actually does what it's supposed to do? And can it help others? And then you want to be surrounded yourself with other like-minded salespeople, other teams. We call it a VAT, the value-added team. Our VAT is so important. People that are supporting you and helping you versus tearing you down. So it is very collaborative, especially at SAP. We're such a huge company. We have so many different solutions. So we often, multiple salespeople have to work together on a project to make sure that we're doing what's right for the customer. What do they need? What do they want? Oh, they don't want this, but they want this. That can be awkward, right? When you have a salesperson who's been in there working and then the customer says, I don't need that. I don't want that anymore. Or we don't have money for that. I actually want to buy that solution over there. But I think that when you are at a company like SAP, it has a long history and it's very established. You're in it for the long haul. You're in it for the long game. You know that there's going to be some kind of, maybe it doesn't always roll your way, right? Maybe it doesn't always feel fair, but you're in it for the long haul. And overall, the right thing is going to happen. Now, I can say that that's not the case everywhere, right? You can go to smaller companies or even startups where it is so cutthroat because you're just fighting and you're internal fighting for the sale, or for the account. You want that to be your account and don't take it from me. And I found them first. I mean, been there, done that. So stressful, and it doesn't help anyone, right? Your energy is going to the wrong thing. So, it is nice to be at a larger company for me where it's very established. There's rules, there's an adjudication group, just like you mentioned. There's people that kind of make decisions, and it's very established. So I like that. It allows me to just do my job and spend my energy where I should spend it versus fighting internally over commission or who has that account.
That's true, because there are even situations that are sometimes beyond our control. Like, for example, a contract has already been signed, but then a client will change it unilaterally from their end, and then you're caught in a bind because the client just happens to be a key account, and then, oops, you have to go back to your boss, and then you're hoping that your boss will show some integrity, and insist that this is what we signed, this is what we agreed to. Now, if what you're after is a restructuring, we could rewrite that on paper and get it signed and follow it as closely as possible. To be fair to both parties, we will charge a certain amount of interest for the delayed payments. So I'm sure that many of our viewers tonight who are listening to what you're sharing and what we're talking about can really relate, because a lot of people in sales listen to the show. And integrity really is a powerful element in what makes sales so enjoyable. I mean, it's not just because we get to meet people, make friends, establish relationships, but it's built on one word, isn't it? Trust. Trust that only comes when there's integrity between both parties. So, Colleen, if you were to leave some parting thoughts with our viewers, like maybe some kind of encouragement to anybody who's struggling with integrity issues, either from within themselves or from the people they work with, how do we encourage them?
Yes, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to that. It's really hard when you're in situations where people don't have the same values or same integrity as you do. It makes you feel uncomfortable. You question yourself. You wonder, am I too uptight? And am I just a rule follower? But my recommendation would be to stay in it, right? Stay in it. Stay true to yourself, because when the drama dies down, or when the solution passes, and you look back on it a year from now, you will feel good about it. As painful as those moments can be, and as awkward as they can be, you'll feel good about it. You'll feel proud of yourself. And that feeling is much more important than I think anything else. So it's very hard in those moments to do the right thing, and it can be lonely. It can be lonely. It's hard. It's just hard. But if you can just follow that kind of inner voice inside of you, that little thing, and sometimes you have to take a break. It'll tap in the shower, or maybe you'll wake up in the middle of the night and kind of feel a way. That will certainly help. And so that way, when you look back on that time, you'll think, I did the right thing. I did the right thing. And if you do all those little right things, I think it's like a muscle. It's like doing push-ups. I read that once. The only way to get better at doing push-ups is to do push-ups. No one wants to hear that. You can't, I could lift other weights, I could go running, I could do whatever, but the only way to get better at doing push-ups is to do the actual push-up, which are not fun. The only way to get better at, constantly sticking up for what's right and having integrity and doing the right thing when no one's watching is to practice it, to do it. the more you do it, kind of the easier it becomes, and it will get stronger. That muscle gets stronger over time.
Mm. You're absolutely right. Um, and it's funny that you should mention push-ups because during this pandemic, we've not been allowed to go out. I responded on Facebook to somebody who challenged me to a 20 by 20, 20 push-ups for the next 20 days. Having reached it, I pushed myself to 25, then to 30, until I did 40 reps in one set. And that took time and a decision to take it, whether or not people were watching, because it was just a matter of being true to myself. And your words, I'm sure, have resonated with so many of our viewers, because if you can't believe in yourself, if you can't trust yourself, if you don't have integrity from within, how can you show it with others? And how can you expect others to give it to you if you don't have it as well? So, Colleen, is there like a place where our viewers could reach out to you, or watch you? Do you have like a LinkedIn or a YouTube show, a channel that
Um,
you might
I
watch?
do have LinkedIn where I do post things from time to time. So certainly my LinkedIn is just Colleen Chulis, and would love to meet people on there and learn things from different people. That would be wonderful.
Okay, so you heard that, viewers. If you want to learn more from Colleen, just look her up in LinkedIn, and follow her posts and maybe future videos because they are worth watching. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just like to remind everybody that if you enjoy this show, and I certainly have enjoyed hosting it with Colleen, that you click on like and subscribe. Doesn't take too long to click that subscribe button, and do follow us along, because next week we will have season 5, episode 7, with the topic of design thinking in the digitized workplace. And we will be interviewing one of our original hosts from season 1 and season 2, Rock Leo, who this time will be interviewed by newer host Nelson D. So, as ever, thank you so much, Colleen, for being our special guest tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, remember that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good night.
Thank you.